Your teenage life is one of the most influential parts in your life. Not only are you starting to branch out socially and talking to different types of people, but you're also going through a time of self-discovery by trying out different hobbies and what type of things that you like or dislike. This can roll into self-esteem or self-identity because it is the value that you see in yourself. Lisa Knowles states, children and young adolescents place different values on the opinions of the social influence groups than do older people and attract more importance to heightened risk perception of teenagers. One way to paraphrase this is just saying that kids really do care about what people think. So this leads us to the question, to what extent can a school affect a student's self-esteem and identity? Before we begin, let's just start off with little definitions that can help us out during this presentation. Culture is the customs, art, social interaction, institutions, achievements of a nation, people, or social group. In this case, we're going to be talking about a school's culture instead of, what we normally see as a country's culture. We'll also be talking about self-esteem, which is how we value and perceive ourselves, and peer pressure. To clarify on peer pressure as of right now, we are not going to be talking about how negative effects such as forcing one to do alcohol or drugs, but instead like a social culture instead of like behaving a certain way or dressing a certain way in order to fit in. There are three main things that can affect a student's self-identity or self-esteem. One is a teacher's attitude in the classroom, 2, other students and peer pressure, and 3, culture at school being represented or expressed. So how does a teacher's attitude affect students? Well, Merrill Aguirre says, perceived negative teacher attitudes show a positive relationship with self-esteem and attitude towards learning. This means that when a teacher has a bad attitude, students do not want to participate in class, meaning that there's going to be less interaction amongst the students and not much friends being made there as well. Outreach concern says, educators play a vital role in teaching students to make wise choices and maintain their individuality by following a path to positive consequences. This means that teachers need to be role models. So they should be teaching students how to be more confident and how to say no to things that they are not comfortable with, or just leading them to make right decisions for the future. When a teacher is unapproachable, students will not open up to them and thus will keep their problems to themselves. And in many cases, students, compared to adults, don't really have as much expertise or experiences that they can live off of. Peer pressure at school. Just to reiterate, peer pressure is a social norm and not much of forcing to do good or bad. According to B.B. Brown, students who belonged to a crowd or had a friend group were more likely to have a higher self-esteem compared to students who spent more time alone or with few friends to be around with. Mostly, students who are usually by themselves tend to start asking them the question, oh, what is wrong with me? Or why does nobody want to hang out with me, when they are expressing, or at least when they're expressing themselves compared to other students who are expressing themselves in the same way, but are also having more friends and being able to have more social interaction because of it. Mudiari over here says, peer groups contributed 34.9% of a student's self-esteem, while the remaining 61.5% were influenced by other factors. Ignoring the 65.1, 34.9 is a little over a third, and having that as just your self-esteem, especially during your teenage years, is of great importance, and you should really pay attention to that. Culture in school. Kim White says, recognizing that everyone has unique traditions, values, and beliefs that are important to them, such as ethnic identity, language, religion, and formal/informal community, neighborhood, and family connections, helps us to see how we are connected. In this case, it might not be common that you see someone that is from the exact same culture as you, such as, well, here I'm Puerto Rican, but it's easy to find other people like me. But for example, if you were Filipino, it's quite easy to find others who are maybe even Latin descent or Asian descent, because you have some cultural similarities that you guys can talk and relate to. And you could also With this, explore other people's cultures, and people will explore your culture as well, making you more confident and stable in your own identity and not having to change. Eli Satcher also says, identity development has been associated with adolescents. Adolescents spend much of their time at school, and school is certainly one of the most important social institutions that adolescents experience. Additionally, identity development is often considered a product of the interaction between intrapersonal and interpersonal factors and the effects of social institutions. Intrapersonal and interpersonal interactions are basically self-reflection and also how you talk to other people as well, picking up on habits that you do like and habits that you don't really like. This can also create your self-identity. Some situations that we could have to help a student's self-identity is just promoting an environment where kids do want to learn, which is having teachers encourage their students to express their individuality. For example, creating group projects or having kids do assignments where they get to talk to each other and have discussions and see other points of views, and thus maybe making new friends in the future. Another is include more school activities that bring a variety of students together. One of these could be like pep rallies, clubs, and even games that bring more students together. In these situations, students will be able to interact and have more chances to make friends or become more confident in themselves. Some limitations are that events might be difficult to execute due to a school's budget. A lot of the time, such as music and arts, it's difficult for students to have as much budgeting. Luckily that we're in a community that does provide it, but and another one is that some places don't really have as much diversity, such as, for example, in New York, there is a very big Hispanic and Black community, so it's kind of hard to find others who are, I would say, like a different culture, and it's hard to find it. So, in conclusion, teachers, students, and culture in the school can affect how a student can see themselves and value and an identity by their attitudes, events at school, and the inclusivity. Any questions?
I do have 2 questions for you. First up, what evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and then why didn't you use it?
One of them was body image, and also from College Board, the fast fashion one as well. Both are good pieces of evidence, but I don't really think that it matches as much with the school. Although I could have added the dressing one into the peer pressure, as many people wanted to conform to the school's identity.
Okay, and if you had more time, what additional research would you do on this subject?
I would have liked to do more social media, but of course, having school and social media, it's 2 completely different things. But also maybe clubs at school or how sports can affect it as well.